While discrimination is not a primary factor in this presidential campaign, I think it's important to lend some perspective on a topic that you may have heard Ron Paul criticized for. A critical aspect of biblical law is the distinction between sins and crimes. All crimes are sins, but not all sins are crimes. For example, covetousness is a matter of the heart, whereas theft is an outward act of aggression against another person. Coveting is the sin, theft is the crime. Since only God knows the heart of man, the civil government cannot regulate private sins of the heart, but they can punish the outward crimes that spring from those sins. Civil magistrates are not the thought police, God is. Because every person is an image of God, racial prejudice is sinful. But the Bible never lists discrimination in the private sector as a crime. In fact, some forms of discrimination are inevitable. We discriminate when it comes to who we hang out with, who we marry, and who we let onto our property. Likewise, a private business owner has the authority to decide who he allows onto his property. It is not a right to enter any business we want to. It is a privilege. When I step onto private property, I'm submitting myself to the owner's rules and affirm his authority to expel me if I do not comply. Business owners have the authority to refuse service to anyone they wish, regardless of the reason, just as you have the authority to not let someone into your home. Racism is a sin of the heart that must be rejected, but discrimination itself is not a punishable crime. Ron Paul has consistently fought for property rights his entire congressional career. He disagrees with portions of the Civil Rights Act that infringe on private business owners. This has often led to him being labeled racist by those in the liberal media. This accusation couldn't be further from the truth, and in most cases is intentionally dishonest for the purpose of smearing Paul's reputation. Paul has repeatedly condemned racism and is personally against discrimination in the marketplace. Even so, he recognizes that the civil government cannot save us from our sins and cannot violate private ownership. Acts of aggression committed on private property are still punishable by law, but refusing service is not an act of aggression. Paul's large following from numerous ethnic backgrounds should prove that he's not a racist. He has never committed a hate crime, nor has he ever promoted discriminatory legislation. We should keep in mind that no person other than Christ is exempt from sin in the heart. We could discount Paul because he might have some particular sin in his heart, which only God really knows. But would it be wise to do so if this sin has no effect on his political platform? We'd be trading him for candidates that support unbiblical, immoral, and unconstitutional policies. Paul believes that government has been the biggest contributor to racism, and he favors the Civil Rights Act where it repealed government discrimination. The public sector, funded by taxpayers, is not allowed to have racial discrimination since all citizens are represented. Paul's position is fully compatible with the biblical distinction of sins and crimes and the biblical principle of private property.